Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. It's great to see all of you. Jazakumullah khairan for coming. We really appreciate it. I think it's a tricky time, and I appreciate everybody braving and coming out here. I'm going to be brief, inshallah. I don't want to take too much of your time. I think there's much more esteemed guests and speakers that are more valuable to take the time to talk to you. I just want to share with you an update about what we've been doing, a little bit about what the past, the present, and the future looks like here at IECPA. So to get us started, the first thing is vision and mission. One of the things that we really focused on when we started to really think about where we were going, it was about uplift and it was about educate. So our vision is to uplift the local community by fostering a sense of unity that embodies Islamic values and develops well-rounded members of society. And our mission is to educate the Lehigh Valley community about the tenets of Islam by providing educational, religious, social, and economic services to all those in need. The difference between the vision and the mission: vision is more long-term. The mission is what we are doing currently to arrive at the vision, just so that you know a little bit of difference there. So to look at the evolution of IECPA, if you've been with us for many, many years, or if you've joined us recently, facility size and parking lot were a big challenge for us because as a growing community, I don't know how much you know about the history, but when we moved into this facility, as the days went by, more and more, as you saw earlier when Brother Ahmad asked how many people are new to the community, the numbers were growing. And so we had to have a larger parking lot. We had to work on the building. There was a lot that went on. So if you look there, you could see that 26% growth in facility size, 417% growth in the parking lot. And we find ourselves at a state where we are overcrowded again, and we still need to grow further because the parking lot, if you come here for Jumu'ah prayer, is full again, alhamdulillah. The wealth value, 75% growth. An important concept in our Islamic communities around the US is to understand that we need to build foundation, we need to build long-term sustainability, and that is the key word for tonight. You'll hear this word over and over again. Sustainability is extremely important for us as Muslim communities here in the US and across the world as well. But I think we're a little bit behind in terms of how that works. So that is an important word to keep in mind, sustainability. Regular classes and study circles, 160%. You can see if you've been active, if you've been paying attention to the emails. By the way, how many people are not on the email list right now? Please see Brother Usman Shah. Please stand up, Brother Usman, so that we can get everybody on the email list. That's your man right there. Please get on the email list because that will give you visibility into what we are doing in terms of our programming, in terms of any events, pretty much being aware of what's going on in the community. That's the way to do it. We also have text messaging and things like that. And the website was recently updated, so you can also check that out, iecpa.org. Youth programs. Many of you know Brother Ibrahim Jaber, who has joined our community. He's been at the forefront of developing and building structure and organization and programming around the youth. So 633%, obviously that's a direct impact from him being involved. Full-time staff, we'll get into a little bit more detail in the later slides, but you get to see what's going on here in terms of growth. So in terms of full-time staff, 500% growth. We went from 1 to 6. Alhamdulillah, you can see there are dedicated roles for specific areas, and we continue to grow. By the way, my email address is growth@iecpa.org. It's no coincidence that I'm telling you about this. So the specific roles that we have, you can see them up there, but the growth is coming from the fact that our communities are growing and the responsibility we have towards each other continues to grow as well. So classes and study circles, 160%. You can see some of the things that we're doing. The Nuraniya seminar for teachers. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see up there, if you're not a part of it and you're interested in any of these activities, please see us. The team is here. I think it might be helpful for us to point out who's involved in the activities, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We can do that a little bit later. And if you go to the website, you can see everybody who's active in terms of in the masjid administration as well as volunteer programs. But those are some of the things that we have. Youth programming, this is a big, big concern throughout the US and around the world, is how do we serve and be there for our youth? And of course, when we talk about youth, it can be many different age groups, and we have the genders and all these different ways that it can break down. But what we've been focusing on is really trying to get the core foundation in place so that these types of activities can not only grow, but we can find other activities that we can do to really expand. So you can see youth course, apprentice highlights. So the apprentice program is something specifically built to train and teach our youth to ultimately become great or better at giving dawah, right? So the basis of these programs is we teach you life skills, leadership skills, but the underlying foundation is Islamic, and it's how do I give the proper dawah? How do I become trained in speaking and confident in my identity as a Muslim? Special events, several of these going on. We listed a few, but if you've been with us, if you've been paying attention to the announcements and things, you are aware of some of the things that we've done, and it continues to grow. I mean, there's a lot coming, inshallah. So please stay tuned to that. Zakat distribution, this is something that's been growing. If you look at 333%, it's no coincidence. Obviously, the community is growing, the needs are growing, and so from that perspective, please be aware in terms of zakat al-mal, zakat al-fitr, and udhiyah and qurbani. All of those things have grown for us. So the community continues to grow, and we are responsible, all of us together, not just anybody that's in the management or anything like that. We all as a community are responsible for sustaining ourselves, for being able to be stable when it comes to supporting our brothers and sisters, regardless of what situation or condition they're in. Sisters programming, I think this is an area that is always a little bit sensitive, because I think that we all struggle in a lot of communities on how to properly have sisters programming. So, we are open to ideas. I think that's one of the greatest things about having a community where you're growing, because you have this stable foundation, then you have growth. So when growth comes, a lot of great ideas come in, but you also have to look at how feasible they are, how many can we pull off. These are some of the things that have already happened, but it would be great if you have ideas, especially the sisters. I'm asking you, if there are great ideas, if there are people that can own those ideas, it would be great to have that possibility. So you can see some of these events here, and they were successful. So inshallah, we look forward to doing more in that vein. Open house. I think this is something that many of you have attended it. Or if not, you've probably seen on our social media what the event was like. It was basically an open house for the masjid, where we invited those that were non-Muslim in the area. So our neighbors, our friends, clergy, as well as public servants, so like judges and politicians and all those folks in the area. They attended. It was very well attended. We had a lot of folks here. We had set up food in this area. So there were several sort of like a buffet, an international buffet of all the various countries that were represented in the Muslim Ummah. So you had this whole area filled up, basically. It was an amazing thing to see. Alhamdulillah, we continue to do those throughout the year, and we're always looking for volunteers to help us with that. So it does take quite the amount of work to get it all set up. So, and this slide is, I can't, there's no words to really describe how grateful we are. I mean, I want to say Jazakumullahu khairan, but you can see we put general categories up there, but there are so many people behind the scenes here at IECPA. It's humbling, it's motivating, it's inspiring. I just want to call out every last attendee and supporter, every last volunteer, all the committee leads, the core administration, board of directors, founding members. I mean, this obviously, many of you who are involved in any sort of organizational development or sustainability, you're aware that it takes, how they say it takes a village to raise a child? It takes more than a village to maintain an organization. It takes everybody. All of us collectively have to really put our hearts and our minds and our effort and our time and our money into it in order to really grow and sustain. So Jazakumullahu khairan to everybody. And we truly appreciate everyone's effort, and anytime feedback, always welcome. So plans for 2022, that's the past and present. Let's look at the future, inshallah. So plans for 2022, 3 major areas that we're focusing on. So education, youth, dawah. So education, we have the educational awareness series, collaboration with dawah and youth committees. So there's a concerted effort to try to combine and work together within the various parts of the organization so that we come out at the other end with programs that are very well thought out in terms of how they impact the various areas. So dawah, youth, education, you can see the synergy that could form there. So there's going to be more collective effort to try to combine those 3 areas. Program restructuring and reimagining of the mission, vision, and goals of the education department. As I mentioned earlier, when you're growing as an organization, you cannot do the same thing and expect different results. You have to look and examine what you've been doing, how you've been doing it, has it been successful, and have what's called the design thinking mindset, where you look at who you're serving and understand, are you serving them the right way? Are they getting what they need? So inshallah, there will be a concerted effort around that. And then youth, as you saw, we had several youth activities, 633% of growth in youth, but that continues to be an area where we just can't do enough because of how critical that is in terms of, the phrase we used to use was torch bearers, right? Torch bearers. Who is going to bear the torch when we are gone? We are not going to be here forever. So inshallah, we are working to have the annual youth conference retreat, parenting workshops, annual business competition, father, son, mother, daughter activities, youth activation program, activism in dawah and social welfare. And then there's dawah, which is, massively important, never really becomes a low priority, always a top priority. So intensive with keynote speakers, new convert programs, bi-monthly family dinners, and the conference and special events. So these are the three major areas. There's obviously a lot more going on, but it was important to highlight these major areas because they are going to be front and center, and we will be looking for help in these areas. So if there's something that you have to offer in terms of time, money, volunteering, these types of things, it would be great to get help with that, because that's where we're headed, inshallah, for next year. Another two areas that's really important, as I mentioned earlier, we are quickly outgrowing what we had built based on thinking forward in terms of how big the community would become. So property expansion is definitely a priority. It's definitely going to be a major piece of where we go in the future, in the short-term future, not long-term, short-term future. Property expansion is a big piece. And then the community Hajj and Umrah trip. These are something that we are doing an Umrah trip this year, but the idea is to grow that further, have the Hajj trip, which is something that hasn't been done. So inshallah, these major areas for 2022. And that ends my time. And now I'm going to